Let's travel now to the second temple in Uruk. I told you already that this temple was the larger, more important temple, and it is dedicated to the goddess Innana or Innana. You're going to see the spelling of her name in various forms. It is because scholars have well, we like to argue, we like to disagree, and scholars have not agreed upon the pronunciation of her name, and so the spellings are showing you various options for her pronunciation. Iana, Inanna. Those are just two of the ways her name is pronounced. Our artwork comes from the temple dedicated to Innana, and it is referred to as the Warka head. Warka, remember, the modern town or the modern city of Uruk is referred to as Warka in Iraq, and it is called the Warka head because it was found in Warka. And then in question mark, is this Innana? So you see another way of spelling her name and pronouncing her name. The question mark is because we're not quite sure. It might be her. It is from the time that the Sumerians would have had a temple dedicated to Innana. It was found in the complex dedicated to Innana, and it is made of marble. We'll get into how that is relevant in a bit, but let me formally introduce you to her. The goddess Innana is referred to as the Queen of Heaven. She also has various functions. She is a goddess of heaven, a goddess of love, a goddess of fertility. She's a goddess of warfare. Many see her as a root origin for many other later evolutions of goddesses. Her connection to heaven and earth being one like Isis in Egypt, her connection to love and fertility being like Aphrodite or Venus to the Greeks and the Romans, her connection to warfare like that of Athena or Minerva for the Greeks and the Romans. So it's interesting to see how these early cultures define a lot of roots for later civilizations. Here we see a image of Innana showing herself to be a queen wearing this horned crown. We'll look at another of these that another god is wearing. And she is often shown with wings and taloned feet. She is often accompanied by lions and owls, symbolizing her warfare and her wisdom. She is a fantastic goddess, and I wish I could talk about her in class with you. Here, in this Warka head, let me change the view, you can see the size of it. What we have are the remains of what we believe to have been a portrait of her. The odd shape that makes up the top of her head, there's this groove down the center, which we think would have been a groove to set in a wig, and a wig of hair that would have been glued down or plaited down on the sides where we see this hairline. The eyebrows and the eyes are hollow, indicating that they would have been inlaid with some kind of precious metal or stonework. Most likely, it would have been a very expensive material. The eyes would have been filled with perhaps ivory for the white of the eyes and some colored gem for the eyes to create this glisten. The nose has been broken, most likely when it was taken apart or destroyed. The nose is often going to be broken in these types of statues because it's the most vulnerable area of a statue. We see her ears, and underneath her neck, what you can't see is that there is a hole. We think this might have been for a post. Perhaps this would have been the head of the statue that would have occupied the temple itself. Here, we have what remains of a burial of a priestess to Innana. Within the complex, or the area surrounding the temple, we have found burials of several women with these elaborate headdresses and necklaces. These heavy gold earrings and necklaces are filled with materials that would have come from far and wide, again emphasizing them as imports and extremely, extremely expensive and precious. The headpiece has been set onto a wig that we think would have been a typical construction for what the priestess would have worn when she was in celebration or in ceremony for Innana. People often would describe Innana as a guardian with 3 stars of heaven, and here we see 3 golden flowers symbolizing stars of heaven. I put these two side by side because if this is supposed to be a priestess to Innana, we can quite fairly assume that Innana would have been outfitted with a similar wig, a similar headpiece, and her body would have been draped in similar extremely elaborate and expensive jewelry and fabrics and clothing. We don't know exactly if this is Innana, but it seems to point in that direction. Even the fact that it is made of marble is a significant element. Why, Miss Cortez? Ooh, look at this. This is another reconstruction. Isn't that lovely? The reason we say marble is a significant element of why this is Innana is because Sumer doesn't have any sources of marble nearby. Marble is crazy hard to come by. Marble would have had to have been imported from far away and then chunked out of a mountain, brought down the Euphrates or the Tigris, and then to the city. That's an expensive piece of material. Now, are you going to have just like any artist carve this crazy expensive block of marble? No, you're going to have your best artisans on this. So we have an expensive piece of material that has been finely crafted by expert artists. It had to have been a woman of some great significance. And the fact that it's found here in her temple complex lets us believe, allows us to believe that this might have been the head of Innana placed on a post made of wood, some kind of a wood structure to indicate a body, and then that would have been the figure that the priest and priestess would have dressed and fed every day. Again, why wood? Wood is crazy expensive. So to have a body of wood would have been another very expensive import. Oh, she's lovely, isn't she? Oh, fantastic. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. In 2003, at the outbreak of the Iraq War between the United States and Saddam Hussein, the museum in Baghdad in which she was housed was looted, and she disappeared. However, and fear not, she was recovered. She was recovered later in the year. She disappeared in April and she was recovered in September. What had happened is she had been part of a larger planned looting by the museum staff themselves. People like to take objects of expense, of import, and it applies then some kind of status to themselves. So the museum was a easy site to be targeted. Museum officials took pieces, including the Innana or the Warka head, as a way to protect them from looters and from destruction. In this class, we're going to be talking a lot about looting and destruction, and it is because this is another human behavior. This is not specific to a people or a culture or a time. We as humans will destroy images to take away power or to absorb power. In fact, I want you to write that down in your notes. Put some kind of like stars or asterisks around it. But I'm going to be repeating this often. You take away somebody's power by taking away their face. You take away somebody's power by destroying their image. You take away somebody's power by taking away their art. We're going to see this pattern happen again and again in this class, and you see it even in your own world. Think about graffiti. Graffiti is a way to create some kind of view or voice or statement of being over somebody else or over some authority. Think about looting. Looting is a way to create some sense of status or power away from those who maintain the power or have the power. So, art is a tool, a manipulation, or is used to manipulate people, and the destruction is also used to manipulate people.